Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, wherever you are in the world. Hope you're all safe and sound with the lockdown. Here in Switzerland is going great. We are opening up. Bars, restaurants, especially hospitality industry is open up again. And we are ready to welcome students as of the end of July here in the country. My name is Mario Sgarrella. I'm the head of marketing of Les Roches. My pleasure to welcome you to this webinar. Is one of the last ones in a series of webinars that we put together to discover our programs, to talk about the future of hospitality, careers in the future hospitality industry. Today with me, we have Scott Dahl, our program director for a brand new master in hospitality and digital transformation that we are putting out. And he's gonna tell us everything about this master. Before I give you the word, Professor Dahl, let me tell everybody to engage with us as much as you can. Send us questions, comments, use the chat or the question box in the platform that you should see in front of you. Without further ado, Professor Dahl, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Mario. And welcome everyone. Glad you could join us. Really looking forward to speaking with you a little bit about our new Masters in Hospitality Strategy and Digital Transformation. As Mario mentioned, my name is Scott Dahl. I'm the program director. I'm also a professor in revenue management and digital marketing at Les Roches in Crown, Montana. And with the exception of the horrifying experience of seeing my picture so large on the screen, the main thing that I would like to point out is two things on here. First of all, I also went to hotel school. I graduated in 1986. I'll probably refer to that a couple times. So I graduated to a very different hotel world than what the world is today. And the other thing is that I come from the industry. I have about 35 years experience in the hospitality business, mostly leadership positions in revenue management at a number of large companies, mostly in the United States. And I've been teaching just for about 4 years. So I think you'll see as we go through, that actually has to a little bit that personality sort of shows itself in the program. So I'm looking forward to sharing that stuff with you. But before we move into the program any further, we're really, really lucky today because we have someone with us that is going to be able to share, I think, the different side of the experience. I can share a little bit about what the degree is about. I can share quite a bit about what your career expectations should be in hospitality after you complete a degree like this one. But I'm super fortunate to have one of my current students, and one of our exemplary students at Les Roches, Sumehar Kaur, on the line with us. So I'd like to ask you to do, Sumehar, if you wouldn't mind, just tell us a little bit about yourself, give us your background, and kind of introduce yourself to our audience today.
Thank you so much, sir. It's an honor to be here with you. Hi, everybody. Good evening. I am Sumehar. I am currently enrolled in the PGD program at Les Roches, but I am planning to do a fast track MBA, so I'll graduate with an MBA. My background is that I have a Bachelor's of Science in Microbiology and Food Technology from Punjab University, Chandigarh. And my family owns a catering company, and I started working with them after I graduated. And that's when I realized that hospitality is my real passion. And I decided to join a hospitality school, which is world number 3, which has a lot of multicultural students. It has an exceptional environment, very professional, unlike any other school that I have been to. And I have a little bit background of digital marketing. I've been working in the digital marketing industry since almost 3 years, ever since I was in college. So yeah, that's about me. Go ahead, feel free to ask me whatever you want about the student life and about Mr. Dahl, because he teaches me.
Thank you, Sumehar. So I actually was going to put you on the spot and ask you to share one more thing, if you wouldn't mind, before we move on into the curriculum. And that is, I think there are a lot of people right now that are listening to us, okay? And I think there are a lot of people that are in a similar situation that you were not very long ago. And so I'm wondering if you would just kind of share, how did you end up at Les Roches? What was the process that brought you here?
So ever since I was in my first year of college, so Bachelor's of Science is a 3-year degree, and I got into science, and I realized that I am more into I enjoy the operational side more. So I started researching about colleges that I want to do my master's in. And when I started Googling, Les Roche's name popped up, and I was And since it's world number 3, it is a very prestigious institute to get into. So I started working on it. I started doing my research. I found the program that I wanted, and I sort of resonated with the curriculum, the environment, the vibe of Les Roches. I mean, be fearless, be Les Roches. I mean, what more do you want in your industry to be fearless and do what you want? I basically resonated with the ethos. So that's why after doing a Google research, after talking to alumni, after discussing it with my family and friends, I zeroed down on Les Roches.
Cool, fantastic. So thank you very much. So now you've kind of met both of us a little bit. And so I'd like to ask Mario, if you wouldn't mind, please, Mario, please share the first poll. We're going to ask you guys just to tell us a little bit about yourself so that we can get to know who it is that's with us today.
Yes, you should see on your screen a little poll. Please vote if you're a student, a young hospitality professional, an experienced hospitality professional, or you work in a completely other field and you have no experience in hospitality. We get to know each other. A few more seconds. Hurry up, hurry up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you. That's it. Do you see on the screen, Professor Dahl?
Okay. Yeah, it's a little bit small, but so we have some students and some experienced hospitality professionals. Fantastic. That's actually the largest group, 40%. Cool. Very cool. Okay. So I think that's actually, that's a fantastic introduction, and it's a great audience for us. And so let me go ahead and talk a little bit about the program. And the first thing is, why a new master's in hospitality strategy and digital transformation? And I think there's really a very specific reason for it. The world is changing, hospitality is changing, and there's been a specific call from the industry for more specialized training, more specialized preparation. The hotel schools, and great hotel schools like ours and some of the other ones around the world, have really become very adept at producing the future luxury general managers of the world. The president of Rosewood Hotels, for example, one of the most luxurious brands in the world, is a Les Roches alumni. But the reality is, we don't spend enough time focusing in those areas of specialization. If someone wanted to go into a not a less traditional path, but the non-traditional path of hospitality. So if you're not interested in operations, but you're interested in sales, marketing, revenue management, or some of those kind of areas, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about more specialized training. In the past, those kind of companies have hired graduates from our school, and then unfortunately, at somewhat of a high failure rate, have then tried to teach them these different disciplines. And Les Roches, we're kind of stepping out a little bit, and we want to be able to help those people that are interested in those types of careers be able to approach them in a much more rapid way, in a much more focused way. So what happened in the industry that caused all this? I'm glad there's some experienced hoteliers on with us, because they'll know, at least they'll know the next one. They might not be old enough to remember this one. But when I first started in revenue management, even, this was the hotel distribution model. It's pretty simple. You either called the hotel directly and you booked a room, or you went through a travel agent and they booked the room, or occasionally you were part of a group and you went through a tour, but that was about it. It wasn't very complex. And then a couple things like the internet and some other things came along, and it really kind of caused our industry to be very disrupted more than 20 years ago. And so now what we have is a massively fragmented distribution landscape. You can see the old channel, okay, all the way out here and around Call the Hotel, and you can see the traditional travel agency, but now you can see the online travel agency like Expedia.com and Booking.com and Hotels.com. You can see meta search agencies like Trivago and Kayak. You can see still the wholesaler, but the point is, all of these different interconnectedness, the wholesaler became electronic in one way. So all of this different interconnectedness has made our business complex, has made our business a training ground for other businesses that have not been digital for more than 20 years. More than 80% of our rooms were sold online last year. Not many industries can really say that they have that degree of online sales, and most people don't realize it. And that's because of this development in technology. Okay. The other thing that's taken place is all of these new intersections of all of these different business models have created entrepreneurial opportunities for people. We'll talk about those in a second as well. So here's everything you need to know about the program. Okay, pretty much in a nutshell, it's 3 modules broken into 2 semesters broken into 3 modules. Beg your pardon. The first module is all of the tactics having to do with digital transformation and hospitality. So it's an introductory course. It's an operations technology course. The majority of this course is not focused on operations. It's focused on the commercial, the marketing and distribution side, but it's critical to understand how the operation is being impacted as well in order to be able to market a business, of course. Database intelligence and artificial intelligence, great course, super relevant. Performance measurement and business analytics, that's a course that I teach that has to do with hotels. And so the thing about this is that's very important, including the boot camp, the decoding boot camp, is that a lot of this is technical in its nature, but this is not a technical degree. You'll get some understanding of technology and operations. You'll actually have an opportunity to do a little bit of machine learning coding, although we don't become coders. You'll do a little bit of machine learning coding to understand what that's like. You'll actually have an opportunity to understand how to build some basic websites and mobile applications, but you won't be a data scientist when that's done. You won't be a web designer when that's done. Okay, you won't be any of those things. What you'll be is a person with the broad skill set that gives you the ability to lead a digital transformation. So the other thing that happens with each of these modules, most of them are taught in blocks, 2-week blocks, but there's a red thread course. You'll see the first one is finance and value creation, and I'll talk about the other 2 in a moment. But what's different about those is that they carry all the way through the block, which allows us to have contact with a member of faculty on a consistent basis. Block learning is fantastic to be able to focus on a topic. Block learning is fantastic to be able to bring in world-class visiting professors, which I'll mention a couple of them. But the problem with block learning, or the risk with block learning, is learn and test and forget, learn and test and forget, learn and test and forget. And so by adding this red thread element and making sure that it's a course that's relevant to the different subjects that are being taught in the blocks, there's a member of faculty that is aware of what's happening throughout the entire block. And it's also not just a member of faculty in the case of our program, but it's one of the school leaders. In the case of the first red thread, it's Frank Gunning, who is the director of the PGD program, the program that Sumehar is currently enrolled in. And the other 2 red thread courses are taught by me. And what that means is for the entire 2 semesters that you'll be on campus with us, you're going to have weekly contact with someone who has the ability to solve an issue for you, but perhaps more importantly, gets to know you over that time period and can kind of, every once in a while maybe realize you're not having a great week and sort of help you with it or something like that. So there's a reason for the red threads. They're super important. The second module is all about the strategy. So the first module, we take those building blocks. The second module, we start putting them together. We start with the design thinking and innovation course, and then we get into digital marketing. That's one of the courses I mentioned, taught by a visiting professor by the name of Max Starkov. I'll share some information with you about him a little bit later on a different slide, but fantastic opportunity for us to have one of the world thought leaders in digital marketing teach for us. The next course in that module is all about ethics and CSR. CSR is super important. Everybody is talking about the environment. Okay, everyone is talking about what technology can do, but fewer people are talking about what technology should do. And this course focuses on that and the risk associated with implementing technology. And you only have to think about data thefts and the way data thefts, personal data thefts, damage a company's reputation, and then think about a technology like facial recognition to understand that in the future, we're going to have a different ethics kind of oriented decision-making process about implementing technology, because technology is going to have a constant risk that we evaluate, a constant risk factor. And so the red thread, and that gets us to 2 things, the business field trip, which I'll talk about in a moment, which is a really cool component of the program. And then the second red thread course, which is channel demand and revenue management. And what I'd like to do, actually, this is a course that's very similar to a course that Sumehar is enrolled with me right now. And so I'd like to bring her back on and ask her to talk a little bit about that course. And specifically, there's a really interesting part of Swiss education, which is very relevant, and that's the applied piece. You'll see that we believe in internships. I think it's a really critical way to teach the industry. But even the most difficult theoretical things we teach, we try and find a way to be able to use some applied learning in that. And so we use a lot of simulations in revenue management. And I think probably Sumehar will tell us a little bit about one because we just recently completed it and had some fun with it. But Sumehar, tell us about the revenue management class that we share.
Yes, sir. So revenue management is a very theoretical course, which is theory, but Mr. Dahl is actually making us do a simulation. It is a very real life simulation. So it's basically making a theoretical subject, turning it into a practical one. It is so real life that we feel like we're the owners of that particular property. And every time our hotel performs well, we're ecstatic. It's like, we've actually gained something out of it. And the moment we perform well, it is heart shattering. Like, I am not even kidding. You actually feel like you've lost that business, and you think of ways you can actually perform better. Other than that, so when we study revenue, there are really big terms like RevPAR and ADR, which you know definitions of. And when you step out, you'll probably, it'll take you a while to understand. But when we do these simulations, we actually understand how they affect our business, how changing a few things here and there, a few points here and there, how spending more on marketing affects our business, how spending less affects our business, how the general markets performance affects your business, everything. So it is very, very real. You feel like you're the owner of that particular property. So, sir, well, actually, thank you. I haven't really got a chance to say that. You've made a very theoretical subject into a very practical one. It's actually very true. Thank you.
Cool. Well, thank you. You're welcome. I think it's, first of all, that is one of the connections I think that it makes this program unique, and that is the rooting that I mentioned that I bring from the industry. In some cases, it's really important to let people touch things, and it's important to have experience being able to see them learn, to realize that some of these things are learned in very different ways. So it's really fun in our class. When we do this, it's very competitive, as Sumehar mentioned. It's very gamified. Whoever makes the most profit wins, and everyone knows who that's going to be. And so it really kind of adds I think, kind of an entertaining component. The other thing that it does is it forces you to live a little bit the role, as she mentioned. And so not just the understanding of what happens when things change, but also the ability to exercise your ability to communicate about it. And what's really fun is, as we talk about it in class, over the couple weeks of that simulation, our students' ability to have an intelligent hotel discussion evolves so much because they're talking about it with their peers in the context of the simulation. So it really accomplishes a lot of things for us. And I'm really happy to be teaching in Switzerland, where that's one of the key components.
Professor Dahl, can I interrupt you with a question
yes.
from the audience? I'll do
yeah,
it once in a while when we get interesting question. Frederick is asking, what is the class size you think it's going to be for this master? And do you think the student body will be less international than other years because of what happened?
That's a really interesting question. I think, Mario, I'm actually going to answer very anecdotally based on the people that I've been interviewing, and then you would probably even have more insight into the numbers. So if you can shed some additional light on it, that'd be great. It's turning out to be an extremely international cohort from the perspective of people that I'm interviewing. My expectation as we go forward would be that the way that's going to be affected is not going to be by a diminishment of international travel, but more of a regionalized impact of that travel. It may be more difficult for some people in certain parts of the world to still get here 90 days from now. So I think what it might do, it might affect us in a very uneven way in terms of what the makeup is, but I wouldn't expect it to be any less international, to be honest with you. I would expect it to be, to definitely be, to kind of have not the same mix, but the same general makeup is what I would say.
I think you had entry interview with people from US, India, France. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. China, South Korea, Hong Kong, Singapore, US, Canada, Mexico.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's quite. It's really quite international, and I wouldn't expect that to be different. I think it would be more the issue of some places where it's difficult for people will end up being an individual hindrance for someone's situation, not a general concept.
And to
And
clarify
then,
for Frederick and for the benefit of everybody, this is a brand new master that we are starting first cohort in October. Till now, I think we had around between 30 and 40 applications sent, and now, yeah, we are in the selection process, and I guess the first cohort will be anything in between 10, 15, 20 students, right?
yeah, that's what I would think. I would think, honestly, based on the, I expected a little bit more, but based on the circumstances with global travel, I would think someplace between 15 and 20 personally would be
And
kind
the
of my.
great thing of a new master, I guess you can comment on that, is that we are really gonna a little bit customize based on the level of the students of the first cohort, right? Because it's you totally here can listen to their 15, let's say, expectations, and then
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's a good time to bring that up, and then we'll kind of move forward a little bit. But it's been that's one of the surprises to me as we've started to develop this is the number of people with significant hotel experience that are interested in the program. And in talking with the number of them, I think part of the reason for that is they have a much better ability to understand the value of it. When you start talking about the nuances in distribution, and you start talking about how much money can be made by a more direct distribution strategy versus an online travel agency strategy, someone in the business for 3 or 4 years has lived those economics and therefore can appreciate it more. So I've actually been, I would say, pleasantly surprised because I think it brings value to the course, but I've been pleasantly surprised by the number of hotel people that we're speaking with about coming and studying with us. So that's one of the really interesting things. The other thing that I would say is a first cohort you have to keep in mind is it's kind of like my first child. It's definitely the case as a parent. I had a much larger vested interest in my oldest child performing well. So I think that you would find a sort of a special relationship with us in terms of trying to help you achieve the goals that you're trying to achieve, mainly because if we were going through this process 3 years from now and you were exactly where you wanted to be, it would be very easy to have you speak on our behalf and pay that forward. So yeah, I think those are really good points, Mario, points that you make. Okay, so I'm going to wait and talk about the business field trip only because there's a slide about it, but we'll talk about that in a second. The other thing that happens at the end of the second module is we match everyone up with a professional mentor. We're in the process right now of establishing an advisory council, and it's professional people in the areas that I mentioned. So the traditional hotel space, the companies that help hotels, and then finally the sort of entrepreneurial opportunities. And I'll talk about that some more, but you'll choose a mentor and then have an opportunity over the final module to work with that mentor to help you figure out internship placement and some of those kind of things. My personal opinion is many of our students will select a mentor that aligns with their interests and then very likely actually be able to turn those into internship opportunities because a number of the advisory council people are also people that are interested in our graduates on completion. So I would expect that. The third module is now leadership. So we've talked about the building blocks, we put them together into a strategy, and now we're going to involve people and ruin everything. I'm just kidding. But so now it's the leadership piece. So we go from where design thinking is part of a strategic piece. This is more of an applied project management. So how do you take an idea, a business idea that's viable, and how do you turn that into the list of steps that result in that business successfully launching? That's one of the courses. The next one and the rest of the courses from that point forward all build upon another. And it's really cool what happens. And we will, in small groups, design a digitally transformed hospitality business. So you start out with the customer experience, incorporating a lot of the skills that you've brought in over the course of the first 2 modules. You'll design the business. What is the customer experience? What would your hotel be like if you were designing a hotel? Then the next course is the business behind that. So what is the business strategy behind it? And perhaps more importantly, what is the development strategy behind it? How are you going to get it off the ground? How are you going to pay for it? And it just like we use those role plays we use those simulations. I hesitate to use the word role play because that feels like actors. What we do is we have you, once you've designed that business and understand the economics of it, we have you sit in front of myself and a couple of people that are in the hotel finance industry and actually pitch that idea and make a commitment for a return on investment. Okay? And then the next step is the leadership piece. So you've designed the customer experience, you've designed the business part of the business, and now it's time to put the team together. So how are you going to attract your people? What's your culture going to be? How are you going to train them? How are you going to hold on to them? What's the organizational structure going to be? And that's taught by a visiting professor who was the vice president of learning and development for Accor, which is the largest hotel company in the world, Frederick Toiteau, super great guy. And that's kind of the last component of those. So now you've designed a business, right? And what we do then is in the other red thread course that I teach, we then take all of the components of that business and we put it in a relatively sophisticated simulation model, and you actually operate that business for a couple of annual cycles. So you design it, you operate it in a marketplace, competing against your peers that have also designed businesses. You develop your team, you motivate your team. And one of the cool things about that, again, remember that gamification that Sumehar mentioned, but also it gives you an opportunity to go through the process of having an owner's meeting. Earlier in the module, you pitched your business and you secured an investment and you made a return on investment commitment. And now 90 days in, let's talk about whether your hotel is performing financially based on the commitments you made. So again, these are the type discussions that you will have in your career in hospitality. And so it gives us an opportunity to simulate those by using these different tools and this different style of learning. Okay. All right, cool. Okay, and then the other piece of that, before I move on to the next page, is it's followed by a capstone or internship project, or capstone project or internship, I'm sorry. So internship's relatively obvious, 24 weeks. We will create the opportunities for you. You certainly could bring us one of your own if you wanted to, and we would evaluate it, but they're gonna be in a number of different potential areas. They're gonna be within hotels. They're going to be within these companies that help hotels, which I'll be talking about. And then finally, they're going to be, potentially in smaller kind of startup environments. If you're not an internship candidate, oh, I'm sorry. Yes, come on, jump in.
Can I add something? So for people who do not have a hospitality background, they do not have to worry. They can still apply for this course because at Les Roches, there is something known as the HIP program, which is the hospitality hyper immersion program, hospitality immersion program, where they actually teach us the basics of hospitality in those 14 days. It is actually, we learn everything from serving to so basically F&B, we learn operations, we learn management, we learn the housekeeping, we learn front desk, back desk. So we basically learn everything. So for people who do not have a hospitality background, they can apply for this course and do the HIP program as well. Thank you, Mr. Dahl.
Excellent. That's a great addition. Absolutely. And I would encourage people to really think about that. One of the things about the hospitality industry to consider, it's a very traditional industry. So one of the things that makes this degree very cool is digital transformation is very fast moving, but the hospitality industry is very slow moving. So you have this piece that you're constantly working with and making those gears that don't want to mesh. I mean, think about it. 3 years ago, almost everything that we understand about digital marketing was different, but it took the luxury industry 15 years to take off their neckties after we all agreed it was time to lose the neckties. So you definitely have a piece that if you don't have hotel industry experience, it can make it a little bit more difficult to be successful in the business for sure. So great point about hospitality immersion in terms of those that don't have hotel experience. It's a really great point. The other thing that I meant to mention about the internships is very similar, and that is that the internships are a tremendously powerful tool because many of the jobs that people would aspire to have when they finish this degree come with that experience required piece. And so you end up in this paradox that I want that job, but it requires experience. I can't get the job, so how do I get the experience? Around in a circle, in a circle, in a circle. But an internship will overcome that. An internship is the perfect opportunity to say, I have worked in that environment. I do know what that work environment is like. I'm interested in going into it again. I know what I'm talking about. So it's really, really great as far as that goes. For those that don't want an internship, there's a capstone project, and it's a business consulting project. Is very, very much the way to think of it. And to give you some examples of some of them that we are envisioning having, it would be creating a digital marketing and digital presence for a really cool resort in Switzerland, but that only relies on traditional marketing now. Or one that I know that we'll have is there's a interesting revenue management startup here in Europe that is interested in expanding into the US and South America. So we some of those kinds of projects. Those are slightly different in that they would be a small group. You would meet once a week with the member of faculty for supervision and actually complete a project with the client. One kind of cool thought for an entrepreneurial person, we would be very open to you assembling a small group of people and working on your own idea in a capstone project environment as well. Just a thought. Finally, I didn't really bring it up before, but there are several professional certifications that come along with the degree. And two of those, for those of you that are in the industry, are going to recognize them. Two of those are CHIA and CATA, which is a certification in hospitality industry analytics, and the certification in advanced hospitality and travel analytics. Both of those are industry recognized. I think it's super important for two reasons. First of all, it gives you something else that is tangible so that you have something to show as you're pursuing career opportunities. It also really shows for anyone who's looking at the program the close alignment between the curriculum of the program and the actual needs of the industry. We're not way out there in theory. We're actually teaching stuff that hotel professionals also learn. So. Okay. All right, then we go to Paris. Woohoo, amazing. We go to Paris because it's cool. No, we go to Paris for three important reasons for the program. The first one is Paris gives us perhaps one of the best opportunities in the world to see digital transformation. We can see grand 5-star Parisian hotels and how they have brought digital transformation in. So it's really easy to build a hotel from the beginning, but if you think about construction from 1650, it doesn't feel Wi-Fi friendly. So just even those simple things, right? How is that digital transformation taken root in the most traditional part of the business? But then there's two other things there as well. The current cycle of startups in hospitality is not starting your own restaurant. It's not starting your own hotel. It's actually in technology solutions and things like that. And a lot of that is taking place in Europe this cycle around. And so there are three specific cities, Berlin, Amsterdam, and Paris, that there's a lot of startup activity. And so we go to Paris and we actually get an opportunity to visit startups, and in a cool way, specifically because of Paris. The first one, exactly the traditional co-working space like you'd think of. Flip-flops, blue jeans, 2 of the 3 people still living in their parents' house because they're in the process of taking an idea and creating something great with it potentially. 10 feet away on another table, or now I'm sorry, 25 feet away now, used to be 10 feet away, in another table is a group of people, maybe dressed the same, but working on a completely different idea. So that's one version of entrepreneurism of the startup environment, and that's the truly entrepreneurial startup environment. But there's another opportunity for that specifically in hospitality in Paris, and that's the Global Innovation Lab at the Accor National Headquarters. So Accor, I mentioned, the largest hotel company in the world in terms of the number of hotels. They have an innovation lab at their corporate headquarters in Paris. And so we get to see, again, that flip-flops, grassroots development, entrepreneurism compared to institutional innovation. How does a large company take advantage of all of its expertise to create good ideas and create positive change and things? So that's why we go to Paris. We go for a week. It's actually kind of nice. It doesn't take us very long to get there. It doesn't take very long to get back. And so it's a really nice, beneficial trip. Okay, go forward here. There we go. Okay, so I'm only going to spend a little bit of time on admission requirements. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on them, but a bachelor's degree and hopefully some relevant experience in hospitality or preferred industry. If you have absolutely no hospitality experience, Sumehar was very gracious to point out, we have the hospitality immersion program. It's definitely the way to go. It'll help you sort of make sure that you're up to speed with the people that are joining the program that already understand the business, at least from a terminology perspective and those kind of things. English qualifications, you can see there, they are what they are. And the, let's see, 21 age limit, and that's really about it, quite frankly, as far as that goes. Much more important to me in terms of admission criteria is what do you want to do when you're done with it? Because I can help you, and especially if your motivation seems strong, I know that I can point you in the direction of the additional things it would take to overcome a lack of hotel experience. But what's important is what you want to do. So let's talk about the outcomes. What are the 3 potential outcomes for the program? So I've been talking about these, alluding to them, but let me really get into them. So the first one is traditional players. If you want to be a general manager, luxury degree is a great idea. Operations degree. Now, more and more general managers coming from the commercial side of the business, but that's really not the positions I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the commercial directors, the directors of marketing, the directors of digital marketing, the revenue management directors, and those kind of people. So in other words, if you think of a hotel and you look at a hotel, unfortunately, 50% of the people on the phone or on the line have experience today. If you take away housekeeping and you take away the kitchen, you have what's left really the careers. There's nothing wrong with housekeeping, but it's not a career that you would get a master's degree for, let's face it. So, but when you look at what's left, you really look at it and what remains divides pretty evenly down the middle. About 50% of what remains is responsible for delivering the product and efficiently creating profitability from the revenues that we have in the hotel. And the other 50% is focused on the commercial side. It's looking outside of the business and bringing customers to the hotel so that the other half of the business can service them. So it's really talking to those people that are interested in that career path in the traditional sense of hospitality. The next one is the new players. I mentioned that I graduated from the University of Massachusetts in 1986. There was no internet, so there was definitely no online travel agencies, but now an entire industry has sprouted up that is not hotels, but is in the hospitality industry helping hotels. And some of them you've heard of: Booking.com, Expedia, Hotels.com, TripAdvisor, different companies like that. You've heard of those. And not only have you heard of them, but they are absolutely companies that are leading, not just in hospitality, but in digital marketing and e-commerce globally. It happens at a lot of lower levels, but all I have to really say is the current president of Uber was running Expedia before he got stolen to run Uber, so that you can get an idea. We've been selling our rooms online for more than 20 years, and more than 80% of our transactions happened online last year. It's a good industry to learn distribution. Okay. Now, there's some other companies in there that you've probably not heard of as well. There are technology companies like Ideas and Duetto that provide technology solutions for hotels. There are business intelligence companies like OTA Insights and TravelClick that sell information to hotels for hotels to perform better. But the reality is those companies are growing rapidly, and no one is really preparing people to go to work for them directly. So what they do is they come to us currently and they recruit. They recruit hotel people and they try to teach them the technology and the digital side. And we're trying to take care of that for them.
Professor Dahl, I have a question from
Yeah.
Yara in the call. She's asking, she doesn't have any professional experience in hospitality. Does she will have to do the pre-sessional program before starting the course that Sumehar just mentioned? Can you just clarify that?
I think that, no, I think I would say that before I would tell anyone that wants to take it should take it. And if you feel like you should take it, then that's fine. Anyone who doesn't want to, I would say we should have a conversation, because there's a number of other industries that would gain you some piece of that experience. The interesting thing with this degree, it's a leadership degree and there's some technical components. So unless you're that very unusual white elephant of a person that is an extroverted technical person, you're going to be comfortable in part of it and uncomfortable in another part of it. Some part of it's going to feel really, you know, in your area of attraction, and one is not, because of those two pieces. So I would say that as long as you have experience that helps you with one of those, it's not really an issue. I'm talking with several people that are already involved in digital marketing, but in other industries, for example. Perfectly great experience to not need to go to hotels. No, they're going to be at a slight disadvantage when it comes time to learning the hotel piece, but someone who's been working in a hotel in an operational department will have a similar kind of an opportunity to need to learn a little more when it comes to the digital marketing side. So it's really just more an issue of making sure, honestly, that you've done something and something has gotten you exposed to enough of what this would be like, so that we can have a discussion to make sure that one of these 3 outcomes that we're discussing is going to work for you. Because I feel very confident I can help someone who's very motivated get to one of these 3 outcomes. But Other than that, I'm not so sure. So it's very easy for me to know that I'm going to be able to satisfy your needs if we're aligned in that sense. So no, I think there's a lot of different profiles that are not necessarily hotels. Some professional experience is helpful, and I think we should just talk about the details of what it is.
I think we can offer, correct me if I'm wrong, Professor Dahl, but we can offer everybody that is on the call that is interested in the program to shoot us an email and to have a conversation with you, with the
Yeah, for
program
sure.
director, because we can
Yeah,
really
no, if you're
understand.
interested in it, I mean, I think that's probably the next step, because it's super important for me to make sure that the people that join the program are going to have that maximum opportunity to be successful when they complete the program, because of the reflection, not only for them, because of the reflection on the program. And so it's important to make sure that that we both mutually agree that it's right in the beginning. So no, I think the conversation, it's better for it to take place earlier, I think, so that we can make sure. So yeah, for sure, we can offer that to everybody. And it's pretty quick. I mean, typically we spend 20 minutes or 30 minutes on the phone and figure it out. So the final opportunity really in the industry right now is startups and entrepreneurs. And this doesn't necessarily mean you are the person with the idea that came up with the idea that is employee number 1. This often means joining a company where you're employee number 5 or something like that. But we have, as a result of our some of our efforts with startups, we have a number of companies that we work with. I sit on the board of a startup in the revenue management space. And so there would definitely be opportunities for someone who is even considering, I'd like to start my own business, so maybe I should go get some experience in an environment with just 4 or 5 employees that are in a very early startup phase as well. So that's kind of the third opportunity that comes from it. So here are some of the potential career paths. I think a lot of people on the phone are from the industry, so they'll all be able to connect with this. But I'm wondering, Mario, let's jump right to the third question. Can we do that, or do we have to do the second one in the poll?
No, we can do the third one.
Okay, cool. So let's do this. So here are some of the career paths. I'm going to leave that slide up there for a second, but let me go ahead. Let's kind of get some information from you guys again, and then we're going to put Sumehar on the spot as well. But let's talk about, take a look at this question and answer this for me. Where do you want to go? What do you dream of?
So yeah, everybody, you should see a poll on your screen. Let me know if it doesn't work. Please click about your dream career.
Okay.
Is it working for everybody? We still see some people not working. Sorry. Apologies for that. Please just do it. Just write it in the chat if you want as well, so we get some feedback.
Well, let's do this, Mario. Let's ask Sumehar to answer that question, because she's facing the same question right now. So let's ask her.
Yes, Sumehar, what do you dream of? What's your future?
Well, my future is divided into stages actually. So initially, I will want to work with an international hotel chain for the first few years initially, and after that, I will join my family business to sort of digitalize it and take it to another level to bring an international perspective to an Indian company. So that's what it'll be. So it'll be a mix of 2 options.
Cool. Fantastic. And it's interesting. I think that you and I know each other a little bit. And what I love about that is it is a more advanced version of what you were doing before. So you had a very clear idea of some additional skills that you wanted to get, and you're in the process of getting those. And what's cool to me is it's not taking you in a completely different direction. It's kind of taking you in a similar direction, but I think probably at a faster speed and with more with more to work with. So I think that's really cool. Very, very cool. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So, some of the career things, we've talked about these, but revenue managers, chief commercial officers, directors of marketing, those kind of jobs, Another group of those would be hotel owners and asset managers and those kind of positions. And then a lot of those positions that we've talked about that have really started to come up that support the hospitality industry and support hotels to do better. Okay, really quickly, I'm just going to mention these guys here because they're very noteworthy. But I mentioned Max Starkov. You can look all these guys up. They're all super well known. Max is a thought leader in digital marketing in the hospitality industry. He founded the largest service provider of third-party digital marketing services on the planet, a company called Next Guest. He is a continual speaker. He's actually a very good teacher and a very good guy. And super excited that he's going to come on campus twice a year and teach digital marketing for us. And I think it's a real people in the business. Some of you guys that have been in the business for a while, you might have even heard of Max or read some of the stuff that Max has done. But occasionally you will run into somebody who knows Max. And I think that will be a real treat to have been able to study with him. Another person who is teaching the leadership course who I mentioned is Frederic Toiteau. Frederic was VP of Learning and Development for Accor. He was with Accor for 16 years. He's currently chair of the Revenue Optimization Board for HSMAI for Europe, and a super good guy, and also a very good teacher. And I think that you'll find that he's a great addition to the course. And then I mentioned the class, but I didn't mention the professor. He's our kind of connection to the Big Bang Theory a little bit. Mauricio Cayón. I say that kind of laughing. He is a expert in artificial intelligence and machine learning, but specifically in the business application of artificial intelligence and machine learning. So he's pretty geeky when he comes to a hotel school. When he's at the University of Applied Sciences, he's not very geeky. He's probably very populist and very able to be understood. But he is someone who's doing a tremendous amount of work in understanding human acceptance of artificial intelligence. What things do we want computers to do for us, and what things do we want to continue to do ourselves? And so it's a fantastic opportunity for our students to be able to study with him and to be able to really kind of bring that stuff into the context of hotels. Okay, so Mario, that's it for my presentation. And so I'm going to ask Sumehar. She's going to, I actually let her know that I was going to do this. It's not unfair, so that wouldn't be unfair. We're going to ask her for kind of one more word of wisdom in a moment. But I didn't know if there's any other questions or anything else we should deal with before we wrap it up.
For the moment, no questions from the audience.
Cool. Okay, so Sumehar, you are
Yes, sir.
In a very unique position because you recently made the decision that many people that are doing this are contemplating, and now you're facing the decision because you made it. You're facing the next decision, which is what are you going to do next, right? So we've already talked about what you're going to do, but what advice would you give for someone that's in this kind of state of transition? They're on this webinar today, they're searching. What would you say?
Okay. Wow, that's an interesting question. So for me, while I was looking for internship, I sat down and I wrote down things, pros and cons for every hospitality department that I should be working in. And that's when I realized that catering sales is one particular field that's going to help me, one, right now, and second, long term as well. Since I already have a marketing background, I wanted to venture out into sales. So it was both a very safe option, yet it was a very adventurous option. So it'll help me in the long run. But so for me, what works is writing down all the pros and cons, weighing every single option and seeing that it does right now, if doing this right now is going to help me reach where I want to be in, say, 5 years. That's what works.
Awesome. Thank you. And then for me, I think the one thing that I would share really if you're in the position right now is that this is the time for self-improvement, really. Think about what's happening and think about how the world is becoming more digital. Think about the number of offices that probably will never have anyone go back to work in them again, that had someone working in them in January. And think about how you can align yourself to take best advantage of that. And my personal opinion, I don't have a horse in the race. I'm a 55-year-old guy. My decisions are made. But I would tell you that when I advise my kids and when I would advise people that have the ability to look forward and think about 30 or 40 years Find something that's interesting to you, and find something that you feel like is going to be essential and is going to be around. And maybe a third thing, find something that over the course of your lifetime, you'll be able to continue to build on it as you change your priorities and things, as opposed to having to make changes. And I think you'll find that digital technology is really kind of where the world was going, and what's happened to us recently is only going to speed that up. And so I applaud you. I think you're smart for being here, and I would encourage you, if you want any more information, to definitely reach out to us and we'll get it for you. Okay. All right. So with that, Mario, I don't have much else. So do you have any kind of closing next steps for people?
No, this is perfect. I want everybody to note the website that I've put in the chat and email, leroche.edu/digital, where you find all information. I'm gonna write it right now, where you find all information about this master. And then marketing@leroche.edu should you wish to know more, to get in contact with us. Again, I strongly recommend everybody interested to get through an interview, introductory interview with Professor Dahl here on the call today. Also, we can put you in contact with current students, alumni of the Les Roches, anything really. We are here to help you.
Awesome.
Thank you very much, Professor Dahl. Thank you very much, Sumehar. Have a good rest of the day, evening. Bye, everybody. Thank you for attending.
Have a great day.
Thank you so much, guys, for attending today's webinar.
Good to see you.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.